You're listening to the Infinite Banking Mastery Podcast. Did you know that you could build a tax-free pool of wealth that's liquid and accessible all your life while building your retirement nest egg? Gain full control of your financial future and stop relying on the government and banks. The wealthy have already discovered this wealth-building secret. Now it's your turn to get financially secure without following the conventional wisdom that keeps you in debt to banks. Now here's your host, Valerie LaRocque.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Infinite Banking Mastery Podcast. Thank you for being here. I hope everyone is doing great, enjoying those first few days of summer. We just got back from a lovely little beach vacation, little mini beach getaway. It was nice to just have that time to be able to relax. I hope you're getting some relaxing in. So today I wanted to talk about how long should I fund the paid up editions writer? Well, this will be, as you may have suspected, different for everyone. Not everyone's schedule will be the same. And as I've mentioned before, policies are custom made for each person depending on their life goals, their major purchases that they have coming up, their plans, their retirement plans, how they plan to use the policy, what their budget's like, how they're going to be able to afford it now and also later. You know, how big of a cash are we trying to build and for what? And so the policies are custom made for each person. Depending on each client's goals, the policy can be built to have a paid up editions that lasts for a pretty long time, not necessarily for many, many years. You can't have it continue on the policy for a lifetime, at least not since I've ever seen, and very rarely that you can have a paid up editions or at least a sizable paid up editions on a policy for a long period of time, because that will cause the policy to become a modified endowment contract. Remember that when you put too much money into the paid up editions rider, it becomes a modified endowment contract and the whole thing becomes taxable, whether you're taking money out for just loans or you're taking money out as a withdrawal. The money is taxable. It also becomes more like a retirement vehicle where you even will have the 10% penalty to pull out money before 59 and a half if you've turned your contract into a modified endowment contract. So we want to stay away from that, obviously, for sure. So you can have a paid up editions that's pretty long, depends on, how it's built from the beginning, or a short time if you have some cash you want to get through that you want to put into your policy. We can try to get that in as soon as possible. It has to be structured well again. You can't just throw the extra cash in there, and you certainly most often can't get a bunch of cash in year one, like a whole bunch in the first year and then plan to really drop it down from there. That oftentimes can cause the policy to become a modified endowment contract. Again, we've really got to watch that MEC line, that MEC ceiling. Oftentimes clients will ask, well, why can't I just pay the paid up editions and continue paying it? Why do I have to stop paying it or lower it at some point in the future? And if you were able to pay it for a very long time, that usually just means that the internal structure of your policy isn't as cash efficient as you probably would like it to be. It can be structured in a more efficient way for your cash, your dollars, to grow, for you to be able to finance things you need in your life and use in your retirement. The paid up editions is really the fuel for your contract. It causes the efficiency of your cash. So if you didn't have a paid up editions, for example, if you had no paid up editions rider, the cash value in your policy in year one would be $0. Well, it might be a few dollars, but pretty much $0. And that kind of design is more of the traditional style, the traditional way of building a whole life policy is just building it. How much death benefit do you need? And you just build that. And then you have a premium that goes along with it. That's the cost of the death benefit. And then there's $0 in the beginning because it's not designed for building cash, although it still will build cash. And so if you have a whole life policy, even if it's not designed for infinite banking, I'm sure it's probably still a great policy because whole life will build cash and it gets better with age. But the paid up editions rider, really it sets the policy up for success when we're talking about the efficiency of your dollars. Some clients have particular goals where it makes sense to really try to front load the policy even more than the norm, what I would normally think is a good idea for someone. Some have a large lump sum of money that they want to get into the policy as soon as possible, or sometimes they want to have it stretch out over a certain period of time. They have a lump sum of funds, whether it's in a savings account. Maybe you have a CD or some other account holding a large amount of savings, or maybe a tax return that's coming in. You're waiting for that. There's a large sum of money. Sometimes there's a large sum or an inheritance that a person wants to be able to get the funds in over a certain amount of time or as soon as possible. So keep in mind that the paid up additions rider, that part of the premium is the part that's over and above the cost of the death benefit. The premium that is supporting the death benefit is called the base premium. And so that ratio of how much base premium and how much paid up additions is something that we would map out together, something that I have in mind for as a basic starting point. And then really we map it out together depending on your goals, what your resources look like. If you have a lump sum of cash you have a plan for, you want to use, over what time period. There's a lot of factors that go into it when we're trying to figure out what's a good ratio of that base to paid up additions premium for you. All of those factors that go into structuring the policy well is part of the skill set that we receive as infinite banking practitioners by partnering and receiving a mentor, working with a mentor for a pretty long time, a year plus, 2 years, maybe 3 years. Just having that mentorship there alongside partnering with that person, having them work with you on the case. All of this mentoring really helps us to learn how to structure the policy well. So we're doing the absolute best we can with someone, and we're learning from someone who's very solid in this industry and in this knowledge. I partnered with my mentor for about 2 to 3 years to really make sure that I understood well how to help people, how to build contracts. A lot of it was really how to teach people well, how to help them understand, explain the concepts, how to answer people's questions when they had questions they were confused about. So working with my mentor for that time period was completely invaluable to me. And I'm thankful and I'm grateful that I got to work and learn from one of the best in the industry who's been doing this one of the longest in the nation. I'm super grateful for that. That mentorship is just really very, very important. When you're talking about the paid up additions, a lot of times with different companies, there can be flexibility with that. So some companies are flexible and some companies are not. Whatever you stick with, whatever you start with in your illustration is something you're going to have to stick with some companies. With my primary company, you do have flexibility. And by flexibility, I mean being able to fund the paid up additions or drop it off for a year or more. Different companies have different rules. But that flexibility, you've still got to be careful, because if you build a policy and it's super close to that MEC line, the modified endowment contract line or ceiling, then it's possible, even when you're messing around with this paid up additions, dropping it off, putting it back on in future years, it's possible that it could MEC. So this is why it's imperative to have an advisor, an infinite banking practitioner who is paying attention to these different things and making sure your contract's not going to MEC in the future, because we really want to keep it tax-free. That's part of what's awesome about the infinite banking concept. And when we're doing this, again, remember that when we're building these policies, we are shrinking down the death benefit. And when you shrink down the death benefit, the cost goes down as well, because the cost is directly related to the death benefit, how much death benefit you have. And then that paid up additions rider is the rocket fuel that you're adding to your policy that's making it really grow and gives you access to cash in those beginning years. It's the rocket fuel. But keep in mind, when you are shrinking down this death benefit, and most people are doing this because they want the cash value to grow well, but this sometimes leaves the death benefit too low, depending on if you're trying to protect someone, if you're married and have children, or you have family you want to take care of or protect, you want to leave a legacy, or maybe you want to leave money to a charity. So when you're shrinking down that death benefit, it sometimes leaves the death benefit too low, which is why, again, it's a good idea, if that's the case, to tack on a term insurance policy to boost up the death benefit. And then in the future, you're able to convert that into another whole life contract when you're trying to build your system and build a larger pool of cash. And when you're shrinking the death benefit, that means that the base premium is going down with it, but you don't want to shrink it down too much and have that base premium be too low, because that is what's going to continue the growth of your policy. Once that paid up additions is required to drop off, there will be a point in time in the future where the paid up additions will have to drop off so that the policy does not become taxable. Some people come to me and they just want to squish that base premium down as low as they possibly can, just to something teeny tiny. And that's really just not a good idea, really, first of all, because of what I just mentioned, that once the paid up additions has to come off, that's the only thing keeping your policy growing. But second, in order to add that huge paid up addition premium or to have it continue for a very long time, then you're going to have to add some term insurance inside of the contract in order to have enough death benefit to be able to add all that extra money into the contract that's over and above the cost of the original death benefit. So then this term insurance is going to boost up the death benefit on your contract, which means that down the line, as you continue to build in your business and continue to get promotions and different things, your income starts to go up. If you want to open another whole life contract to house more of your dollars because you have a higher income, if you have too much term insurance, or if you have a term insurance inside of your whole life in order to be able to have made that paid up additions payment a lot bigger than your base premium, then you might have maxed out your total insurability, because each person, depending on how old they are and how much income they bring in, everybody has a maximum insurability that the insurance company will allow to even insure you for at all. So if you have a large amount of term insurance inside of your whole life contract in order to boost up your death benefit so that you can have a larger paid up additions going in, that bumps up your total insurance that you're covered for, the total death benefit. And then in the future, say 5 years later or something, you want to open another whole life contract because your income's gone up and you want to put more money into something. The company could look at you and say, well, I'm sorry, that you already have too much death benefit as compared to your income and how much longer you are likely to work. There's a whole calculation for that. And so sometimes that restricts people from being able to open a second banking system to be able to really maximize their savings dollars in there if they have this term rider inside of their contract, because they won't be able to boost up the insurance, the death benefit, too high. You might be asking yourself, why would I want more than one policy? Well, it's because over time, as your income increases or you have freed up payments to other things, you've paid something off, you've paid off your mortgage or whatever it is, you have extra cash. You can't put extra cash into your policy that you have that's existing, because whenever we build those policies, they are built at maximum efficiency from day one. So putting in extra cash into that would cause it to become taxable. So we'd have to open a second contract in order to begin to save more money into whole life contracts, because you can't put it into your initial contract. And so for me, we have 9 policies in our family. 3 of them are on my life. The more contracts that I have, the more pools of cash that I have. And I'd rather have 9 pools of cash at my retirement that I can access that's tax-free than just the one contract. And as my income goes up, I want to add more money in. I can't do it into contract number 1. I have to open another contract in order to add those funds in. And so it's possible to end up with more than one in your lifetime, if you're trying to grow your system. And for me, I plan to open more contracts. That certainly doesn't mean it's the end of it, just because we already have 9 in our family. And some of those are on my children, which I will turn over ownership to them when they're older so that they can continue building on that and use those funds for their needs. So the bottom line is, once your contract is in force, you have your structure, you know what you're doing, you should continue the paid up additions as long as you're able, without mecking the contract, without causing the contract to be taxable. Continue paying that paid up additions as long as you're able, or for at least the amount of years that you initially planned to fund it. Because sometimes from the beginning, you're planning a certain amount of years. You want to at least try to hit that amount of years. Of course, you may not be required. It depends on the company. And once you are banking with your policy and you start getting debts paid off, if that's a goal of yours, or you start creating more cash flow from other investment sources, you can use these dollars to continue funding your paid up additions on your current contracts, or even to help fuel a new contract. I hope this was helpful information today, just trying to break it down some more for you. If you would like to learn more about how the infinite banking concept could work for your family, please reach out to me at Valerie at alphaomegawealth.com. I look forward to connecting with you and learning about how this might work for you and your family. I otherwise look forward to sharing again next week and hope that wherever it is you are, that you are enjoying a beautiful summer. Take care.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.